$23,400. That's the number you've been carrying for 6 years, like a stone in your coat pocket. Not the biggest debt you ever had. At 28, you owed more than twice that, across 3 cards, and a loan you took out during a period of your life you don't fully explain to people. But those are gone now, paid off slowly, quietly, one transfer at a time over years that looked identical from the outside. Same apartment, same job, same Tuesday. This one is the last one. A student loan, federal, 6.8% interest. Original balance, $31,000. You've been chipping at it since you were 24. First with the minimum, then with more, then with everything you could reasonably throw at it without dismantling the emergency fund you spent 14 months building. The payoff date on your spreadsheet says 4 months from now. But last Thursday, after a work project you'd been grinding on for 8 weeks finally closed, your company deposited a bonus, $24,500 after tax. You sat in your car in the parking garage for 11 minutes before driving home. You already knew what you were going to do with it. You just needed to sit with the knowing for a while before it became a decision. You transferred the money on a Monday morning at 8:47 a.m. The confirmation screen loads, processing, then a balance, $0. And underneath that, in small gray text, the word you've been waiting 6 years to read. Paid, you close the app, you make coffee, you go to work. Here's the part nobody prepares you for. You thought you'd feel something seismic. You'd imagined this moment more times than you'd admit it to anyone. The version in your head had some weight to it, some ceremony. Maybe you'd call someone. Maybe you'd sit quietly and cry the way people cry when something long and hard finally ends. Maybe you'd feel the specific lightness of a thing that's been pressing on you simply lifting away. Instead, you feel almost nothing. Not emptiness, not disappointment exactly. Something more like the silence after a sound you've been hearing so long you stopped noticing it. The debt was background noise, and now the background is quiet, and you don't quite know what to do with the quiet yet. Your friend calls that evening. You mention it the way you'd mentioned finishing a book you'd been reading for a while. She says, "Oh wow, that's amazing," and then asks if you watched the show everyone is talking about. You say you haven't. She tells you the plot, you listen, you eat dinner, you hang up. You are a person who just paid off their last debt. You're also just a person eating dinner on a Monday. This is the part of the financial journey that doesn't get made into content. The anti-climax. The moment that was supposed to change everything that changes almost nothing about the texture of a Tuesday. But something is different. It takes you a few weeks to locate it. It starts with a number. Your monthly cash flow, without the $340 loan payment, has just increased. You don't spend it. You don't celebrate with it. You sit at the spreadsheet on a Sunday morning with coffee and you redistribute it. $200 more into the brokerage account. $140 more into the Roth. The math is quiet and efficient and feels like nothing dramatic at all. But you run a projection. If you redirect that $340 every month for the next 22 years at a 9% average return, that single freed up payment, the one that used to disappear into interest, becomes $31,000 in additional portfolio value. The debt cost you the loan. Paying it off is paying you back in slow motion, invisibly, indefinitely. That's when the feeling arrives, not in the app, not on the confirmation screen, in a spreadsheet on a Sunday. The quiet math of what's possible now. You think about 27-year-old you, not with nostalgia, with something more complicated. At 27, you were not careless. You were just working with the information you had, which was incomplete in ways you couldn't have known yet. You took out the loan because the math made sense at the time. The degree, the income potential, the standard of just do it like everyone else is doing it. You paid the minimum for 2 years because you didn't understand that the minimum is designed to keep you paying, not to help you stop. The financial industry does not make money when you're debt-free. It makes money while you're in it. At 29, something shifted. A number on a screen that finally got too uncomfortable to rationalize away. A spreadsheet you opened on a weekend and didn't close. A decision, quiet and unglamorous, to start sending extra every month. $50 at first, then $100. Then, after a raise you negotiated by practicing the conversation in your bathroom mirror for 3 weeks, $200. You didn't tell anyone you were doing this. There was no version of that conversation that landed the way you wanted it to. People either got uncomfortable or they asked follow-up questions that assumed you were depriving yourself of something. You weren't depriving yourself. You were choosing. There's a difference, but it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it yet. By 31, the credit cards were gone. By 33, a personal loan you'd taken out to cover a move and a gap month. By now, 34, the last one. 6 years of extra payments. 6 years of seeing the balance drop by amounts that felt insultingly small month to month. $40 of your March payment went to principal. In February, it was 61. The interest was a toll you paid every month just to access your own money. And now you don't pay it anymore. Not to this, not to anything. The loneliness of this process is something you were not prepared for. Not the work of it, not the math, the silence of doing something that matters while the world around you moves in the opposite direction. At a dinner last year, someone at the table refinanced their car to take a vacation. Not maliciously, not stupidly, just the way people make decisions when the present feels more real than the future. You didn't say anything. You passed the bread. You thought about the $23,400. You went home and made a transfer. At 32, a person you were dating asked why you were so rigid about money. You said you didn't think you were rigid. They said you planned too much. You said you were paying off a debt. They said everyone has debt. You said not forever. That was the beginning of something ending. These things don't go on the spreadsheet. The relationship's reshaped by a different relationship with time. The evenings you said no to because the math said not yet. The particular ache of being on a different schedule than the people around you, not better, not worse, just different. And not able to fully explain why the difference matters without sounding like someone who has already decided they're right. You were never sure you were right. You were just sure you didn't want to be 44 still paying interest on a decision you made at 22. The month after the payoff, you do something you haven't let yourself do in years. You book a trip. Not an extravagant one. 4 nights somewhere warm. A flight that isn't the cheapest option. A hotel with a window that faces the water. You spend $1,100 and you do not feel guilty. Not because guilt disappeared, but because the math underneath the guilt has changed. You are not borrowing against the future to pay for the present. You are spending from a position that can absorb it without going backward. That's a different transaction entirely, even if it looks the same from the outside. You sit at breakfast on the 3rd morning of the trip. The light is doing something specific to the water. There's coffee that tastes the way coffee should taste when you're not drinking it standing over a sink. And you feel it. Not the seismic thing you expected when you hit 0 on the balance. Something quieter and more durable. The feeling of being on the other side of a thing you spent years climbing through. You take out your phone, not to check the balance, to look at a projection you saved 3 weeks ago. By 52 at your current contribution rate, your portfolio crosses $800,000. By 57, if the math holds and you keep the behavior, it clears $1.2 million. None of that was possible with $340 a month leaving your account in interest. All of it is possible now. You put the phone away, you drink the coffee. Here is what paying off the last debt actually felt like, not the moment. The moment was quiet in the way that most real endings are quiet. It felt like a Monday. It felt like an app closing. It felt like nothing. And then, slowly over weeks, like everything. It felt like the $340 that used to disappear now building something you'll be able to see clearly in 20 years. It felt like booking the trip without the math fighting you. It felt like a dinner where you passed the bread without saying what you were thinking, and came home and made a transfer and knew, without needing anyone to confirm it, that you were on the right side of the decision. Debt doesn't end with a ceremony. It ends on a Monday at 8:47 in the morning, in an app, with small gray text and a balance of 0, and coffee to make and work to get to. And that is exactly enough.